Thank you for listening to the Mujeres Create podcast.
Hi, everybody. I'm back with Behind the Success. I had to take a little pause because as I started to record this episode specifically, this is the Google episode, and I'm calling it All That Glitters Is Not Gold, Surviving Big Tech. I had a really hard time. I recorded an episode and then I just couldn't find the right words. I couldn't find like a loving way to tell the story. So I had to pause and really reflect on what I wanted the message to be. My time at Google was definitely the hardest years in my career. If you've known me, you know that I struggled a lot over the 3 years that I was there. And through the podcast, you've heard me talk about my burnout and all the things I struggled with. But truly, the 3 years and 3 months that I spent at Google were the hardest years of my career. And I wanted to do an episode just from a place of love and gratitude rather than a place of anger and frustration, because obviously there's still things that I get frustrated about from that experience. But, I definitely want to make sure that I'm putting out the right message, and I have healed a lot of those situations. And I definitely want this to reflect that. So after leaving Hulu and going to Google, Hulu, the last episode, was the funnest time I've had in my career. So leaving that was really hard. And I definitely was not looking to leave Hulu when I got recruited by Google. But it's one of those things that, yes, you get recruited by Google and you kind of have to go, right? It's a company that so many people aspire to work at, so many people dream about working at. And even though I had never really thought about working there, the opportunity to go there was definitely enticing and something that I'm very grateful for. That first week of training, that experience, the Noogler training, as they call it, I had the spit in my stomach. And I walked in and it just felt maybe like the first day of school where you don't know anyone, where everybody looks different than you, where you feel like, ooh, do I belong here? That's what I felt. It was very intense. It was very confusing. It was very different. I've always worked in media. So coming from a media background, a lot of the personalities are very similar. People come from, similar backgrounds, studied similar things as you. I studied communications. It's like kind of like a very fun, easygoing environment. And obviously there are media companies where this is not the case, but I had experienced nothing but like fun people, uh, similar personalities. Like I definitely felt like I belonged in media. Obviously, after combating the initial kind of like imposter syndrome that we all feel in the first job, especially if you're a woman of color. But going into Google that first week, I definitely felt out of place. And I felt like, oh my God, where did I come to? I was scared. Just people that are not necessarily media, they're more like from a tech background. They do different things. They're coding. They're like, their language is different. Their day-to-day operations is different than me, advertising, sales, media. And so from that standpoint, it was kind of like, oh shit, like where did I land? And then the content itself was so different. Google is massive. If we were working with like 10,000 people at Hulu, it was now 100,000 people globally at Google, and probably more because this is now almost 10 years ago. So it's massive, navigating it, understanding the different departments, the different functions, the different layers of leadership, the different products. There's thousands of products, thousands of ways that clients can engage with Google when you're selling YouTube, when you're selling search, a whole huge world that opened up to me when I worked there, because up until that point, I was just thinking about video and Hulu and and Telemundo and NBC. And now it was just like a whole different beast. We're talking about performance marketing, auction advertising, YouTube video, and all these different products. It was very complex. So I was just immediately like overwhelmed with information, overwhelmed with um, anxiety of like this new company and navigating it. I was placed on the multicultural team, and the really good thing about that was that I was finally working with a very multicultural group of people. Most of us were Latinos, um, and that immediately felt very good. We had a really good team dynamic initially, and the work was challenging and it was very hard to understand. It was very hard for me to kind of figure out what I was really doing at Google because it it's hard to explain. But anyways, the team dynamic itself was very fun. I worked with a lot of really great people, fun, funny. I think we were probably the most relaxed group of people out of the group that we were placed with. We were within the agency team, and then it just like LCS, which is large customer sales. It was a massive operations when you think about multicultural, then agency, then LCS, then global from there. So navigating it was challenging. Understanding all the products that you had to sell was challenging. I think another level of complexity is the personalities of the people. In media, like I said, you're kind of working with a lot of, for the most part, easygoing people. But Google attracts a lot of, you know, I think they call it type A, very like structured, very rigid, just very not personable, for lack of a better word. And I don't mean to offend anybody, but not the warmest people. And so dealing with complexity, with navigating such a massive company, and then the layer of the personality was also very hard for me because, I tend to be very bubbly and very positive and very happy and like relaxed. I definitely have a very chill personality. And then getting into an environment where you kind of feel the tension in the room, you're kind of afraid to speak, you're kind of afraid to say the wrong thing. You feel like you always have to impress people, and you're working with the smartest people in the world. So all of that pressure really gets to you, and I would say that that was probably one of the hardest things that I dealt with while I was there. Not ever feeling like I was smart enough, like I was worthy of the opportunity, like I was working with people that cared about me as a human being more than a Googler or a tech employee. But the person, the human behind that, I outside of my team, I felt like that was really hard to find. And, not to say that there aren't great, warm, amazing leaders, especially in different departments. You do find those people that do care about the human component, that spend their time mentoring and coaching and training, but it feels like it's very far and few in between. And the agency team particularly had a lot of difficult personalities, and we were there, right there, like in the midst of all of those leaders that were some of the toughest leaders that I've ever worked with. Leaders that, if they cared about the human component, they definitely didn't show it. It was all about performance. It was all about excellence. It was all about preparation, perfection, not missing a beat. It was very intense. So that level of intensity made it really hard. Um, as I turned 6 months into my time at Google, we switched managers, and we ended up getting a manager that I would have to say, and I mean this kindly, but not the best manager I've ever worked with. I had a lot of challenges with this manager. This person walking into the team, she had never sold multicultural. So we were constantly having to explain why and how and when and where and make the case for the things that we were trying to do. I think the lack of understanding of what we were trying to do also kind of created that barrier. Um, I think our personalities were very different. I'm very like happy, go lucky. And I think in some ways that kind of got under her skin. I don't know if she expected me to be a little bit more like serious or robotic or whatever it was. But this manager and I did not see eye to eye. There were so many things that this manager did to hurt the team dynamic, to hurt the team's morale. It definitely was a very challenging situation. And I definitely credit her for leading me to a really bad burnout. Her management style, she was very, I think, controlling of the team and wanting to know where you were. At least with me, it was kind of like, why are you not in the office at this time? Where are you? Like, always having to report myself, always having to kind of like validate my thoughts, ideas, my approach. It was just really difficult. I feel like the management style was very insecure, very traditional, as I explained in my previous episodes, very controlling, not empowering. I don't think she properly knew how to support her team in front of upper management or how to position her team from a place of strength and support. And it was just a very difficult dynamic to deal with. I was one of the first people that left the team, but after I left the team, 6 other people left the team. And that speaks volumes for the dynamic that we were all managing on that team. I definitely have many reasons to remain frustrated and angry, but I keep thinking about like, if I was dealing with all of these things at Google, I can only imagine what she was dealing with. I mentioned before that our multicultural team was not properly supported, funded, invested in, trained, resourced. And she had to deal with all of that. And she had to deal with those difficult directors that I mentioned earlier. She had to have very thick skin. She had to be the one reporting revenue updates and performance updates. And, she was the face. So I can only imagine the difficulty that she had proving herself in a new team, dealing with all the dynamics of Google in a new team. And, she probably also had personal things that she was dealing with at the time. And so, as much as I want to be angry and frustrated, I really do want to give her some grace, because if I had a hard time and I was an individual contributor, I did manage the team for a little bit. I did manage like part of the team. I was a team manager, but she was a team leader. I want to give her grace and say, you know what? I struggled a lot. I cannot imagine leading a team of 10, 12 people, dealing with all those pressures and still having to put on a good face and show up every day. And the amount of pressure that women face in the workplace, over the years, I definitely have come to understand that this situation with that manager is above and beyond like having a bad manager. It's like, if I'm not properly supported, resourced, none of the team members are, imagine the manager and like what that manager is dealing with. And so I definitely give her some grace. And I left Google in 2019, 6 years removed from that experience. I have definitely, as we call it, healed and evolved, and definitely just see both sides of it. So the management component was really tough. All of these dynamics led me to a massive burnout in my career. it's one of the times when I realized, okay, so how do we define success? We define success many times by the accolades, right? The company that you can work for. Google is a big name. The title that you attain, the pay that you make, the recognition. That's success to a lot of people. I had all of that, but I felt anything but successful. I was at the lowest point of my career. I was showing up to work feeling anxious every single day, feeling a pit in my stomach. I remember I would want to go on vacation and I would be on vacation, but I would not stop checking emails, responding to emails, working on projects, doing presentations. I could never turn it off. I could never fully disconnect from the work. I would be in meetings and I would just be like afraid to say something that maybe was the wrong answer. I would not want to like participate. I was just shying away and I was making myself so small in that role that I had a wake up moment and I said, wow, if this is success, I don't want it. And that was kind of the beginning of kind of me reframing what success could mean for myself. I ended up trying to leave the team, the multicultural team. I took a rotation because one of the wonderful things at Google is that you can do rotations that take you out of where you work and give you exposure to other teams and other projects, and you can grow significantly in that way. I did that. I went to a different team. And in many ways, like being away from that manager was very helpful. I got to experience a different management style, still very tough, but at least it felt like, okay, it's not personal to me. Like, is the whole team getting the same energy, right? So I went to a different team and my nervous system was able to calm down. I was able to do different work. I was able to contribute differently. And even though the dynamics of the workplace improved and changed, I was still not, I was still very disappointed with some of the things I saw. At Google, one of the things that is very difficult for employees is the performance evaluations. Is a very grueling process that you go through every 6 months. And in the performance evaluations, you ask other teammates to review you to kind of like give an overview of like how you've performed based on the projects that you've outlined in your performance evaluation that you do yourself. So you ask your teammates, hey, can you review me? So that when managers see that, they see that you've been collaborating, that other people back you up. And I got so much training and coaching and all of these things for that performance evaluation, for that preparation. I remember putting together like a 5-page document about the things that I got to work on, the ways that I grew, the things that I learned, how I was able to contribute, the impact that I brought, all of those things. And then one other employee in that team asked me to review her performance. And I did. And I saw that she wrote like 3 sentences. And this person was like highly regarded as like one of the top performers on the team. Could be that she had spent so much time on that team that it was obvious, that she contributed. She didn't have to go into all the details, but the disparity between the way I had to position myself and how hard I had to work for that performance evaluation to kind of be deemed worthy or valuable or impactful versus like how easy it was for this person to just write 3 sentences and get a good performance evaluation and get a good review and just like maintain that status on the team. I saw that and I was like, okay, this is not a game I want to play. This is not something that I want to be part of. This is not something that I'm going to spend my life doing. And I decided after that encounter that it was time for me to leave Google. I was applying to all these different roles and I was trying to really stay, because one of the things that happens when you are trying to leave Google and you tell people, nobody understands why anyone would want to leave such a great job. Why would anybody want to leave the pay, the perks, the benefits, the title, the company. Like, definitely nobody in my circle understood. My family did not understand because it's something that so many people aspire to. So I really tried. I think I applied to maybe 12 different roles. I made it into a finalist to like maybe three or four of those roles, and I never got a chance to get another role at Google. So I tried really hard, and I prepared myself, and I got coaching. And and the episode number 2, Steph LeBlanc Godfrey was one of the people that really helped me in that situation. And she helped me understand how I could position myself, how I could fix my resume, how I needed to talk about my experience. And she connected me to so many powerful Black women within Google and Latina women within Google to help me get back into a good place mentally and emotionally and physically. So I did all the things to try to stay there. But then after I saw that dynamic with the performance evaluation, I kind of was very disappointed. And I said, I don't want to play this game anymore. I definitely know that I'm not staying at Google. This is not where I want my career to go. This is not where I want my energy to be spent. Like, this is not really helping me in any way to work for this huge company. And I feel so small. I feel so helpless and useless. I don't want to be that. I need to get out. I ended up going back to the multicultural team. And I think after I was out of it for 6 months and I came back, the dynamic was so much better with that manager and the teammates. And I think I was in a different mental state. I was no longer trying to escape. I was just like coming from a place of self-empowerment. Like, this is a game that I don't want to play. I'm going to do my best, but I'm focused on finding an external opportunity. And I ended up having the best performance I've ever had at Google in terms of evaluations. I think I kind of like was kind of able to pull out and like see the big picture. Like, no, there's a lot that I can contribute. I do have amazing experience that I bring to the table. I have skills, I have relationships in the marketplace. I have so much that I can contribute, but I want to do that somewhere else. So I came back with that energy of empowerment and motivation, and just like I was assertive. For the first time in my Google career, my Google years, I felt more assertive, and I came back with that energy. And I want to say that maybe 3 or 4 months after coming back to the team is when I ended up getting hired at iHeartMedia. As hard as it was for me, I think it was necessary. It was necessary because up until that point, I had had amazing experiences in the workplace. I had some struggles and some challenges, but it had been nothing but amazingness and fun. And I had some growth, and I worked with cool people at cool places, but truly, nothing had pushed me to the edge like Google. Nothing has stretched my potential to its limit like Google did. Nothing had questioned my value, my worth, my skills, my experience like Google. And sometimes we need that. I came into Google feeling excited, prepared, knowledgeable, experienced. And very quickly, they were like, nope, you don't know enough about any of this. Nope, you need more training. You need more coaching. You need more guidance. Here's all these tools. Nothing had ever pushed me to that level. And that experience truly taught me a lot about my values, a lot about myself, a lot about my self-worth. Taught me a lot about the human connection that we can't lose in the workplace, the compassion that we still need to bring to the workplace. I saw a lot of people, unfortunately, losing themselves in that rat race, wanting to get to the next level, to the next title, to the higher pay at all costs, risking their health, risking the relationship with their families, with their coworkers, just like zeroing in on that goal and dismissing everything else that was important, their sleep, their rest, their health. And I just didn't want to do that. And I know sometimes it sounds like I'm being entitled. I do come from an immigrant background, and a lot of times we're told just put your head down and work, put your head down and don't complain. You're lucky to have what you have. You're lucky to get to a place like Google. You're lucky to get that pay, that role. So many people want to be in your shoes. And I know that, of course. And I want that for all of us. But until you get to that place and you kind of climb that ladder and you see the view and you don't like the view, you're kind of like, this is not the view I thought I would be getting. Then I started to value my sanity, my peace, my rest, my time with family, my time on vacation, my personal time, the way that I sleep well at night, peaceful without having that anxiety in my stomach, in my mind. And so I started to value that more. That experience really made me better. And it really opened the door for a lot of the work that I'm doing now, as I'm like attempting to build a holistic leadership coaching business, coaching leaders, especially women of color, on how to still go for those big goals in your career, but how to not lose yourself in the process, how to, honor your values, your your gifts, your purpose, your intention, how to value all of that along the way and how to not lose it, because it's very easy to lose it. We think that all that we want in life is to make a lot of money, to work for a big company. And yeah, those things are amazing, and I still want that. But I mean, what good is it when you can't enjoy the ride? We spend 40, 50 years working and if you're in corporate working for other people, if you're going to do that, I want us to enjoy the ride, because what's the point of not enjoying it, of suffering through it? And so I think that's what I gained from Google. And if I had to, I would do it all over again because it really was a valuable lesson. And on talking about lessons, let's go through the top 5. The first one is the myth of a dream job. You know, this is something that I think starts to add a lot of pressure from the time you graduate college. We always want that dream job, and we think the dream job is at the big company, the big title, the big pay. But sometimes it's not that. And so I think as you go through your career, adjusting and resetting based on what does a dream job look like to you? A dream job to me now looks like I have a boss that I get along with, that understands me, that's compassionate, that we have mutual respect, a job that I can come in and do and have fun and enjoy and have some purpose in it, a job that's not going to make me feel anxious or worried or overwhelmed when I'm on vacation or at nighttime when I'm at home. That's a dream job to me. So defining what a dream job to you is very important, and not letting what you see around you, people competing for roles and things, not falling into the trap that you always have to compete. First of all, you have to say, do I want to compete for that? Is that what I want? Or do I think I need to compete? Two different things. So always making sure that, you're grounded in that. The second lesson is learning to navigate a difficult manager. And, this is a big one, because what happens often is that maybe we don't have the best manager. And instead of saying, wow, this manager has a lot of growth to do, we put the blame on ourselves. And that's definitely what I did. Now that I look back, I'm like, wow, there was a lot of bad things that I dealt with. But I definitely put a lot of blame on myself. So you kind of have to see, okay, where is this manager like being a bad manager versus what is the work that I need to do to grow and to really create impact on my team? You kind of have to kind of pull back a little bit and kind of see the big picture And not always just blame yourself. And I know it's not easy to provide feedback all the time in different corporate spaces, but wherever you can, be transparent with your manager and say, hey, like, I felt like that was a personal attack. I want to check in with you. Like, what was that? Um, hey, I need more time delivering these materials. Is that okay? Just being transparent about what you need, because we're humans. And if you're going through a really hard time, just being able to speak up about it can make a world of difference. I definitely wish I would have been more transparent with that manager. And maybe she would have like stepped back a little bit and would have had a constructive conversation. But you know, you decide if the workplace that you're at allows you to have that transparency and that freedom. And if it doesn't, then you know what I'm going to say. It's time to go and find a better place for yourself. Saving yourself from burnout. So when you're in the thick of burnout, I talked about how I felt. I couldn't sleep. I was anxious. I was worried. I was overwhelmed. My brain couldn't function. My personality changed. I went from being a bubbly person to being very stressed and angry and like just on edge. I didn't know I was burnt out. Now I know I was burnt out, but I didn't know. Now I see the signs. Now it's like, oh, I was burnt out. Of course. It was just like a feeling that is hard to describe. So if you're experiencing these feelings in your workplace, look at the resources that your company offers. Can you take time off, personal leave, sick leave? Can you get access to therapy, counselors, resources? What can you do to save yourself from prolonging this burnout? Because prolonged burnout is even more dangerous. And I heard a stat not too long ago, I think it was from Daisy Auger Dominguez. She wrote this book, From Burnout to Lit Up. And she talked about how burnout accumulates in your body and in your mind. So I think I was carrying some burnout from all the heavy traveling that I had done at Hulu, from the 8 years at Telemundo where I was nonstop. And so this little burnout was like accumulating. And then it hit an all-time high at Google. And that's when I crashed. So I highly encourage you to look into, okay, am I burnt out? Am I just stressed a little bit? And stress levels fluctuate throughout our careers. Sometimes we're in roles that are not that stressful. Sometimes we are. So just being your best advocate and saving yourself from that. Number 4, finding your tribe. So I talk about Steph LeBlanc Godfrey. And when I met her, she was in this retention role at Google. She was helping women, especially women of color, stay at Google, like talent retention. And she was such an amazing resource to me. And on the second episode, I talk about how she saved my life at Google and she introduced me to an amazing network of Black and Latina women that had gone to similar situations as I did and who helped me kind of get back to myself and get back to a better place. So finding your tribe, even like outside of your team, within your team, people that you can trust, that you can share, your situation with, that you can lean on, and maybe they can point you to resources that maybe you're not aware of. But finding your tribe is very important, even if it's not in that particular workplace, outside of it, just finding ways. Reach out to me. Like I love to talk to women about, what they're dealing with or what their situations are and how I can help. But that it really is crucial. And sometimes it could even save you from having to leave, a bad team dynamic, a bad manager. Sometimes it's just like you're in a bad place and you just need someone to kind of help guide you in the right direction. Last but not least, number 5, you are more than your job title. It was definitely hard for me to leave Google, to leave the company, to leave the benefits. Google has probably the best benefits of any company I've worked at, the amazing perks, the pay, all the wonderful things that come with working for a big company. The food was incredible. Every day we had breakfast, lunch, dinner available to us, unlimited snacks, delicious coffee, tea, soft drinks available all the time. We had massage rooms, we had napping rooms, napping pods. We had amazing speakers. Like I got to meet Tyler Perry one day in one of his Medea movie releases. I got to meet so many wonderful speakers, inspiring speakers. I got to travel to really cool places, events. It was truly a wonderful experience. So it's really hard to leave that. But again, it was more about like, what's important to me? Can I keep up this rhythm and still live a good life, a life that I'm proud of, that I feel like I'm enjoying, that I'm getting proper rest, that I'm getting balance or not? And so for me, letting go of that identity was really difficult and I did it and I'm proud of that. So if you're finding yourself kind of like leaning too much on that job identity, I want to say reflect on that because you're more than a job title. You're more than the company you work for. You're more than the salary that you get paid. You're more than all of that. You're more important. Your sanity, your mental health and wellness is more important. The time you spend with family, with friends, enjoying life, enjoying all the wonderful things that are surrounding you. All of those things are so important. So don't forget about that. And I will just close out with saying Google is a wonderful place to work. If you are thinking about going to a place like Google and you have questions, send me a LinkedIn message, send me a DM. However, just email me and like I'm happy to respond to any questions. Tech is definitely very challenging, especially for people of color, but it is a wonderful place. And if you ever have the opportunity to go to work for a place like Google, I highly encourage you to, because even if it gets tough, if it gets hard and challenging, you will learn so much, just like I did. So I'm super grateful for my time at Google. I would do it all over again. And the best part of this experience was the friendships that I was able to create on that team, outside of that team. Um, Friendships that are unlike any other work relationships, really tightly knit relationships. And I'm so grateful for that. And I will always have that in or out of Google. That's always the best part. So I hope you enjoyed this episode and share the wisdom with everybody around you and let me know what you think. Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to the Mujeres Create podcast. I hope you enjoyed the episode and don't forget to share the wisdom with other mujeres.